Okay, welcome back to the Slice and our continued coverage of the Paris 2024 Olympic tennis, where we've got some crazy matchups and action going down in the draw. Will Novak Djokovic finally get his gold Olympic medal that he's been searching for? Will Dan Evans and Andy Murray continue their dream run, Cinderella run in the doubles? We'll see. We're going to break down all the men's quarterfinals, singles matches, and we're going to look at the doubles. We've got some stuff to get into. We've got some stuff to break down. This is the Slice. We're worn out from trying to figure out where the tennis is at in these Olympics. So let's get into it. Here's the Slice presented by Wet Boy. Okay, welcome back to the show. If you have not yet, go watch or listen to the Slice Tennis podcast with JP Hovey. It is on your player of choice, Spotify, Apple. You can download it. You can listen to us chop it up. We were talking about lots of things like Dan Evans sacrificing over 100, I believe, 111 spots in the ATP rankings to come play the Olympics instead of playing at Washington where he won last year or was in the final. I can't remember. And what that means, a bunch of other cool topics. So go check out the podcast if you haven't already. And thanks for subscribing. It helps us out. It helps us out. Speaking of helping out, like we just said, Dan Evans has helped out Great Britain greatly, pairing with Andy Murray in his last tournament ever. Everyone's been talking about it. To come back from the brink of defeat 2 times, not once, twice. And you can just see that these guys are absolutely fired up, and there's just nothing better. You know, a lot of times you see Dan Evans walk around, and I've interviewed him here on the show, and I was like, does this guy hate me? Does he have any passion? This is back in 2018 when he was on his comeback, and you can obviously see how much he cares and what it means to him in these pictures and in the videos of the matches that they're winning. So it's just crazy. So they're through to the quarterfinals of the doubles, and there's the other guys, but who's not through is Rafa, Nadal, and Carlitos. The Spanish double lost today to the Americans, Rajiv Ram and Austin Krajicek. So their run is over, and Nadal's tournament is over. And as we talked about in the podcast, which you should listen to now and download and click the links where the podcast is, we talked about Nadal, and he said after the match he doesn't know where he's going to be at. He doesn't have really any plans for what's next. You would assume that it would be the U.S. Open, the hard court swing, but you never know. You just don't know. So we're just going to have to tune in there and wait to see what Rafito decides to do. But in the men's singles, the real story for me, anyways, is Djokovic going for gold. That's what he's obviously come here to do. That's what, his central goal, I think, remaining in his career is to get gold for himself, for Serbia. And like we said on the channel here, potentially then retire. Although he's playing well enough, and he looks like, why would he ever retire when he's essentially the only person on tour he's not beating right now is Carlos Alcaraz. He is going to be playing. So we're going to get into it now. So let's get into the matchups in the men's quarterfinals. So we've got Djokovic versus Tsitsipas on the top. And that's interesting, and we'll get into why. The head-to-head right now, 11-2 for Djokovic. He's won their last 9 matches. He's obviously in the driver's seat. Then we've got Alexander Zverev versus Lorenzo Musetti. Zverev, finalist at the French Open. Musetti, semifinalist in Wimbledon. So great players playing great there. And then we've got Casper Ruud from Norway, obviously, playing our guy, Felix Auger-Aliassime from Canada. So that's a great matchup as well. Their head-to-head right now, is 3-2 for Ruud, but Felix won their last match on clay. I believe that was in Barcelona or Madrid this year. Someone fact-check me. Just pulling that off the top of my head. And then we've got Paul versus Alcaraz. Tommy Paul versus Alcaraz playing again. They just played at Wimbledon in the quarterfinals or the 4th round. And that was a great match. I believe this is the quarterfinals. They always have a great match. Both great athletes, great movers. We've talked about it. And this one's not going to be any different, I'm sure. So What goes into these matches? I think the big storyline here is people talking about Djokovic on the top. Can he get through and even get a medal? He's got to get a medal in singles. Tsitsipas playing Tsitsipas in the quarterfinals. He's won the last 9 matches. Tsitsipas has faded in the last few years. They literally, Tsitsipas hasn't played, Tsitsipas hasn't beaten Djokovic since like for 5 years almost, and that's insane if you think about it. The last time they played though was the Australian Open final 2023, so about a year and a half ago. So I'm interested to see what the dynamics are going to be in this matchup, because if you think about it, there's 3 things that really make this an upset alert for Djokovic. If you're thinking about the Djokovic Tsitsipas match, the fact that it's 3 sets, that makes a difference. That makes it easier for Tsitsipas. You only have to win 2 sets, and obviously Djokovic is more beatable in 3-set matches than 5 sets, and especially for Tsitsipas, who can produce amazing tennis in stints, but hasn't shown that he can do it against Djokovic in a 5-set match. So this is a 3-set match. There's also massive pressure on Djokovic. We talked about, JP and I argued in the podcast about whether or not Djokovic feels the Olympic pressure. To me, it's clear that he's done. He does. He's won 24 majors. He's made the final of half the majors he's played in, which is crazy. Yet he hasn't won an Olympic medal. That is the definition of pressure. To me, it kind of proves that he does feel it. And I don't think this year is going to be different. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles it against Tsitsipas, who's a guy who he could lose to. And then finally, it's on clay. Tsitsipas's best surface, Djokovic's arguably worst surface. So that's another kind of point for a potential upset coming down the pipe for Tsitsipas. That's not to say I think Tsitsipas is going to win. I'm predicting that Djokovic will win this match, but I do think this is a sketchy tester one for Djokovic, and it's not a great, there's probably a number of other players in this quarterfinal that he would rather play in the quarterfinals than Tsitsipas. I think he'd rather play Ruud or Auger-Aliassime or Tommy Paul or someone like that. So this is a tough match for Djokovic. I do predict that he will get through in 3 sets. 3 sets, I'm calling it. Okay, Zverev versus Musetti. This is an interesting one because Musetti just has been playing fantastic. He went over and played in the Croatia Open and then lost in the final to Cerundolo, which is kind of funny. But obviously, for some reason, Google's not showing. He was in the final of Wimbledon before that. Queens before that. And then he played in the semifinals at Wimbledon. So he's been winning a lot of matches and playing great tennis as of late. He went and played on clay in the Croatia Open, so he got some work in there, and he's now in the quarterfinals of the Olympics. And he's playing Zverev, who made the finals of the French Open. But my thought on this again is pressure. Zverev won the gold medal in Tokyo in the 2020 Olympics. So I feel like he's got that pressure to defend his title. And he's already put up quotes there like winning the Olympics is the biggest thing you can do in tennis. Not true at all. It's just like an insane quote. It's not the biggest thing you can do in tennis. But I think he said it's the biggest thing you can do in sport, but he kind of implies that it is in tennis. And that's just like not the case, obviously. But I think he feels pressure to defend this title or his Olympic medal, which I think gives Musetti a bit of an edge. Musetti can play a bit more free, play that beautiful tennis of his, and his return game has been amazing, like we saw at Wimbledon. So on clay against Zverev, he's going to even have more time, and I think he's going to do great. So I'm predicting Musetti to beat Zverev in 3 sets. 2 3-setters so far. And then we got FAA Felix Auger-Aliassime versus Casper Ruud. Now, Felix Auger-Aliassime just beat Daniil Medvedev in the previous round to get into the quarterfinals, and he's looking great. One of the reasons maybe he just made a little bit of a change in his team. He just got rid of his longtime agent, and so now literally he's unrepresented. But to me, he seemed to be looking really free on the court. He seemed to be playing with freedom, joy, and just he was doing this. after he beat Medvedev, which is one of his best wins in a long time. He beat Ruud earlier in the year, but Medvedev, that's a big win for our guy Felix. Top 5 win. It's huge. It's huge. So I think he comes into this matchup versus Ruud feeling confident, obviously drawing from his win over Ruud earlier in the year on clay. And I'm picking Felix to win. I like him to win. He's got that firepower. And when he finds those sparks and when he finds that form in his game, he can be really hard to stop. And he's done well on the Chatrier court before. Obviously, so has Ruud, making the final here and at Roland Garros multiple times. But I'm rolling with our guy. Canadian, potentially some Canadian bias here in these Olympic previews. I'm rolling with Felix. And then Tommy Paul versus Carlos Alcaraz. Like we said, these guys always have great matches. These guys are a fantastic matchup to watch as far as an athletics point of view. But right now, just with the way Alcaraz is playing and the confidence he's playing with on clay, I think he's just got too much sauce. Right now. But it's not 5 sets. So again, that gives Tommy Paul more of a chance to stun him. And if you look at their head-to-head, it will show that in the 5-set matches, Tommy Paul, I believe, so Wimbledon, last time they played, Alcaraz won. Cincinnati, 2023, Alcaraz won. Canada, Tommy Paul won twice. So they're actually 2-2 in 3-set matches. And Alcaraz has won the only 5-set match. But in general, Alcaraz is a 5-set beast. So since it's not a 5-set, logic would say that Tommy has probably a better chance against him in a 3-set match. And you never know how Alcaraz is feeling. He's been living the Olympic experience. We've seen the photos with the Dutch field hockey team. We don't know how much energy he has left. He's been playing doubles with Rafa. He's been living it up. So it'll be interesting. I'm picking Alcaraz in 3, but I think it'll be a tough match. So according to my predictions, we've got Djokovic versus Musetti and FAA versus Alcaraz in the semifinals of the Olympic tournament. Will that happen? We're just going to have to wait and see. So yeah, in the other news, I think the big story of the doubles is how far can Andy Murray and Dan Evans go? Can they keep the fire alive? We're going to bring it up here on the screen. We're going to show you the doubles draw here shortly once I hack the system because the Olympic website is so brutal. Where is it? So we've got Bolelli and Valdasori from Italy went out to Cranio Busta and Granolers. They beat, that was early on. That was in the first round, actually. Ebden and Piers are through to the semifinals. Fritz and Paul versus Dan Evans and Andy Murray tomorrow in the doubles. It's going to be epic, and we'll see if they can do that. Can Evans and Murray stay alive versus a very good singles team of Fritz and Paul? Will the old dogs prevail over the young Americans? It's going to be super interesting. We're going to have to wait and see. Anyways, you're up to date in the men's singles and some of the doubles. Give me your thoughts. Give me your predictions down below. Those are my thoughts on the matchups. I think they're great matchups, and I think the Olympic dream is going to stay alive for Djokovic, but it's a tester for sure against Tsitsipas, mark my words, and we will see what happens there. May the best people win. Thanks for being here. As always, subscribe and go check out the Slice Tennis podcast with JP Hovey. We'll see you guys next time here on The Slice.